Hello everyone, good evening and welcome to my class on the Unacademy Live platform. In today's class, we are going to cover Prediction Series Feb-March 2020. So, what are we going to cover in this series of predictions? We are going to cover IELTS speaking topics. Now, before I begin and tell you something more about what is going to be covered and the different topics that we are going to discuss, I'm going to spend a little bit of time, a little time in explaining to you what is the whole IELTS subscription on the Unacademy all about. Before that, let me introduce myself to you. My name is Arifa Zahir, and I am the founder of British English Trainers. Now, the thing that a lot of you wouldn't know about me is before even becoming an educator, I was an IELTS administrator. So, before being an IELTS tutor and teacher for both IELTS teachers and students, I was an IELTS administrator. And that gave me an edge like nothing ever because I got to know more about the whole process of the examination and the kind of experiences the students have on the day of the examination and my whole perspective about the IELTS examination underwent a change because from that experience, I could figure out that students not only need to be prepared for the examination, but they also need to have a clear perspective about how they are going to appear for the examination on the day of the examination. I was an IELTS administrator with the British Council for 5 years and would conduct IELTS all over East India. Post that, I got into full time teaching and training LTA students and tutors. And not only that, during that process, not only did I teach students, but I also learned a lot of things in terms of what are the problems that students face, what kind of errors do they make, and what is the approach that I should be having so that they can get as much marks as possible. So the whole process of needs analysis took birth in my last job with the British Council. Post that, once I left the British Council, I started my own institute by the name of British English Trainers. And in this institute, I have been teaching students, uh, a lot of students in my whole journey of IELTS, more than 5,000 IELTS students. And in my institute itself, hundreds of students where we've prepared them for the IELTS examination and helped them to score as much marks as possible. We have a 96% success rate where our students have managed to score the relevant required band score. So, because of all these things, I can assure you that we have a whole database of the topics that have been regularly coming for the examination, and that gives us the ability to be more accurate with the speaking topics that could come for the IELTS examination. All right, so with that guarantee and that assurance, let us begin this process of learning and getting to know the IELTS speaking in a much more accurate manner. Because the more you practice, you are in a better position to score good marks. So, in order to do that, you need to get accustomed to different types of speaking topics, from very specific to abstract speaking topics. And when I'm going to share the topics with you today, you're going to realize that the IELTS speaking topics which have come in the month of Jan and which we are predicting will be there definitely in the month of Feb and March are going to have these topics, and you're going to realize that once you practice these, you are going to be in a position to answer any kind of question. And you may never know, you may strike gold, and these questions, let me assure you, will definitely come for the examinations. So don't wait for long, let's jump into it. And before we do that, a quick look at the IELTS subscription on the Unacademy Live platform on the Unacademy website. There are different types of subscriptions from 1 month to 3 months to 6 months to 12 months to 24 months. Now, it's very important to know that all these different types of subscriptions can become very, very useful for you if you're clear about why you're joining it and by when would you want to give your IELTS exam. I would suggest you take 2 to 3 months to plan for your IELTS examination so that you can make the most out of all the recorded videos, all the live sessions that are available on the Unacademy live platform. You can also be sure of the fact that there are earlier videos of these amazing educators who are all experts in the field, and you should have the time to be able to go and check the videos, take down notes, and adapt and adopt those qualities, those features in your speaking, writing, listening, and reading skills. All right, so that you get the highest band score as possible. And because of that, it is important that you go for subscriptions which are truly beneficial for you. I'm going to help you understand the 3 month subscription better. You can see that the 3 month subscription is 2,250 per month. For 3 months, you can see it would come down to 8,100. But because Unacademy is already giving you 17% off, you'll have to pay 6,750 only. Now, if I tell you that you can get a further 10% discount, the only thing that you need to do is use my subscription code. So, my subscription code for YouTube is Arifa Live. And if you use this subscription, you will be getting a 10% off on this. So what are you waiting for? Don't delay and go ahead and take this subscription. Now, let's get to the main topic. Now, let me see if we've got anyone in the class. Okay, I'm going to open this and see if we have anyone in the class, and then I'm going to continue with the class again. And if you've got any more questions, no. So you have the opportunity, a lovely opportunity out here to use, you could use either BE trainers, my referral code for the live classes, or you could also use Arifa Live. So it's totally up to you. Any one of these that you use, you would definitely get a 10% off. All right, let's move ahead. Now, what is first step when it comes to the IELTS speaking test? It is greeting the examiner. Let's have a look at the process which involves greeting the examiner. What kind of questions would she be asking you there? So the first question would be, examiner who would say, "Hello, I'm Arifa Zahir. What can I call you? What's yours?" Candidate: "I'm Ravi Jha. People call me Ravi, or my name is Ravi Jha. Just call me Ravi." Either of these things could be answered by you. The second question would be, "Where are you from? Where do you belong to? Could you tell me where do you come from?" So you could say, "I'm from Kolkata, which is in the eastern part of India." So give a location but don't give a lot of details. Now, this is a quick look before we get into the questions. Don't you worry, there are a lot of questions. I have compiled a whole set of questions for you which have come in the month of Jan, and they are going to be repeated in the month of Feb again. So you you need to understand the whole concept before we jump and share the questions with you. Examiner: "Can I see your identity card?" So for all IELTS students, rest assured the ID card is nothing but an original, valid passport. Candidate: "Sure, here it is, of course." Don't question the examiner back. Very, very important to note. Be clear and audible while you are speaking, and don't speak too fast. Now, it's important to understand that after the process of you greeting the examiner, there are three stages: part one, part two, and part three. Once the greeting the examiner process gets over, it is important to understand that the part 1 of the IELTS speaking test is going to start. So, when the part 1 of the IELTS speaking test starts, you are going to answer questions in relation to what is being asked to you. Please remember the questions are very simple and you need to answer in at least one or two sentences. Please refrain from giving answers in yes or no. No monosyllables, please. So, the number of questions depend on the three topics. Time taken usually out here is 4 to 5 minutes. Questions and answers on the given topic have to be spoken for part 2, which happens immediately after part 1. Now, you take 1 minute to prepare your answers and at least 2 minutes to give your answers. So, 1 minute is for prep time and 2 minutes for speaking time. Now, it's very important to note out here that the examiner is going to time you. The moment the 1 minute is going to get over, you'll have to start speaking on the topic. And this particular topic may or may not be related to the first set of questions, but let me assure you, part 2 and part 3 are definitely going to be completely correlated. Now, part 3 majorly discussion type of questions, and the time taken is 4 to 5 minutes. It's important to note out here that whenever we speak about part 3, it looks like it is similar to part 1, but it isn't. Part 1 and part 3 are completely different from each other. Part 1 focuses on very common normal topics, daily life topics like where you're from, where do you study, work, life, holiday. These are topics which are very common and it's never specific. So it's good to give these answers in a relaxed manner, never in a yes or no way. And whereas in part 3, you have to give your opinion on the given topics, compare, contrast, list, give many examples. So it's important that you speak as much as you can on any relevant topic and show your language expertise, your vocabulary range, your linkers to the examiner so that you can get as much marks as possible in part 1, part 2, and part 3. So that's it about the structure. Now let's move ahead. The marking pattern is very simple. Grammar holds 25% marks, lexical resource 25%, cohesion and coherence. In fact, we would call it fluency because in IELTS speaking, fluency holds a very, very important part. And so you need to continuously speak on a topic. If you hesitate and if you stop, it may lead you to lose marks. And the last bit is going to be pronunciation. So all these hold 25% each. I've done complete series on pronunciation, and if you've got any doubts in relation to that, you can please look it up. Now, how is the band score calculated? This is how the overall is always the overall of all the four scores, and that's how it's reflected on the on your IELTS TRF, that means test result form. Next, the areas which you would need to specifically focus on are synonyms, vocabulary. Pachu, thank you for the question. I'm doing a quick input before I give you the predicted questions. So don't worry, we will come to that. And so these are some of the synonyms that you could use. And collocations are equally important. I do not want to rush through all these. So I guess it's important that you wait till the end of the class today to get to know what the predicted questions are. And it's equally important to understand that there is a structure to the IELTS speaking. So I am going to get to the main center of attraction, attention today, but you'll have to wait for some time. Now, synonyms that could be used instead of busy, occupied, transport, modes of conveyance, beautiful, stunning. So, we are talking about vocab. How many ways can it be used? Collocations are equally important. So, you can look at junk food, fast food, agree with, take a look. The accuracy in grammar, sentence structure, the singular verb should go, subject should go with singular verb, the plural subject should go with the plural verb. So these are equally important in IELTS speaking. And of course, tenses, word stress, fluency, and pronunciation and using linking devices. All these happen to be very, very important parts of the IELTS speaking test. Now, before we jump into the main one, and I can assure you that it will be an eye opener for you, because I'm sure a lot of you who are preparing for the IELTS speaking test are referring to the book series. Now, the interesting thing about the book series are some of the questions are common and will still come for the IELTS speaking test, but it's very important to understand that in the IELTS speaking examination, every 3 months, the questions, at least some of them change. And in order to highlight and make it clear to you what are the questions that have come and will be coming, it is important that I take you through it. Okay? So we've got some questions by Bachu. Yes, collocations are very, very important. Okay, so now have a look at these linkers. You can see certain linkers for showing cause and effect, to show an example. So these are things that you just need to be aware of. Once you are aware of these things, you'll be in a better position to answer your questions and correlate. Now it's time for samples, and I'm going to disclose the questions that have come and will definitely come in the month of Feb. So are you excited? If you are excited, let me know with a thumbs up so that I can now show you the questions. Let's see how many thumbs ups do we get. How many yes? It's like they say, it's show time. Do we have students right now in the class? If you've got people in the class, I need a yes from all of you, because I'm going to only show the questions after that. So more people saying yes. Yes, Pachu, all these are equally important and I will be coming back to it in some time. Okay, guys, I need a yes from, I can see that we've got 6 to 7 people watching the video right now. Okay, it's show time and here it is. This is the first question that came in the first week of this month, that is in the month of Jan. And it's important to know that this question has come 3 times till now. So we've just touched Feb. That means it's come in the first speaking the test date, the second, and the third speaking test date. Now look at the question. Isn't it easy? You can see now this question has not only come in the last month, but it has also come 2 months ago. So it's important to understand that some questions get repeated all the time. So questions like, do you walk daily? So why do you walk? Where do you walk to? Do you walk more often than in the past? Do you think you walk enough to keep yourself fit? Do you walk alone or with friends? Where do people in your country usually go for walking? Do you think people will walk more or not in the future? So these set of questions were one after the other asked to the students. Generally, it is said that in the part 1 of the IELTS speaking test, you are asked a number of questions, but not that many questions. But here, I'm going to break the myth for you. This time, last month, students in the part 1 of the IELTS speaking test were asked 7 to 8 questions, one after the other. So you will have to prepare yourself for these types of questions which are going to come one, like, back to back. Now, the thing to understand out here is, are you going to give answers in yes, no? No, you're not going to give your answers in monosyllables. You will have to answer at least in 1 or 2 sentences, and that is very, very important. I will come back to this question in another minute, but before that, I'm going to show you what came for part 2. So I've got vocab for you. So let's have a look at what came in part 2. Describe a team you were a member of. Describe a time you were a member of a team on sport or work. You should say what the team was, what your role was in the team, and explain how you felt about being part of the team. Speak for 2 minutes at a stretch. So this was the question which was followed. after the part 1 of the speaking test. So it's important to understand that in this particular question, part 1 and part 2 are correlated. But again, there is no guarantee that part 1 and part 2 will be correlated. But part 2 and part 3 will definitely be correlated. Alright. Now, this particular question again is one question which has come in the month of December, January last date, and again it is expected to definitely come this month. Now, why did I pick up this particular question? This is in correlation to the first question, but this separately has come in correlation to some other question also. So this is another question that is a sure shot winner. Describe a time you were a member of a team on sport or work. The sport and work one keeps coming one after the other. Please prepare yourself for both. Now, next, I am going to show you, I'm sorry, I am going to show you some questions that have come for part 3, and then I'm going to explain all the 3 sets to you. Do people often visit parks nowadays? So that's a typo error. Do you think all age groups enjoy going to park? How important are parks or gardens in cities and why? Nowadays, most of the people are planting flowers in their backyards. What is your opinion? Is it necessary to teach kids in school about the importance of environment? What steps should the government take to improve the awareness of environment among the citizens? All right, so let's go back and let me show you from part 1 itself the kind of vocabulary that you could use to answer this in a better manner. I have 4 sets of questions today. After this, I'm just going to show you the questions, and I will give you some input on it. But basically, this particular prediction class is a question release class. That means you are going to be provided with all the question types so that you can go through them and practice it for your immediate speaking examination, which is at the end of the week, or the ones which are going to be followed one after the other after that. All right. So for this particular question, let's look at the answers. Now, do you work daily? The answer could be, is in my case, well, I'm more into running early morning and not into walking. But at times, I do go for a walk with my grandparents. You can see uh, the person definitely doesn't go for that many walks, but has categorically mentioned that instead of walking, that person runs. If you could make a major mistake if you would have answered this by saying, do you walk daily? And you say, no, I don't walk daily. So that would be wrong. So it's always important to say why. There is always a hidden why behind every question. Now, why do you walk? As I told you earlier, or you could say, you could make it a little more polite, as I mentioned to you earlier, ma'am. So rather than saying told you, you could also say mentioned to you. Earlier, ma'am, I'm into running. Running not only helps with my metabolism, but also helps me to concentrate. All right. So these are the different ways in which you could answer this question. Now, let's go back and have a look at the other questions. Do you walk more often than in the past? Now, the thing is, remember, you don't walk that much. So, you need to keep coming up with the answers. The one thing to remember in the IELTS speaking test is you are not here to speak only the truth. You can make up stories, be imaginative, come up with anything that you feel would help you to answer the questions. Don't not give the answer. So that would be dangerous. So for a question like that, do you walk more often than in the past? Maybe you don't walk at all now, but at some point you must have walked. So you would say, when I was a child, I would walk to the school every day. Since the school was in my area, and it was a 10-minute walk from my house. So because of that, I had to walk every day to school. And that's why I did a lot of walking when I was a child. Compared to that, I don't walk at all now because of buses, cars, and autos, which are easily available. I refrain from walking. You can see, you can expand it to 3 or 4 sentences, or you can just keep it short at 2 sentences, but never just a sentence. All right. Now let's move on to another topic. And if anyone wants to ask me a question, you're more than welcome. So, do we have any questions in the class? No. All right. Now let's move ahead. I've answered this. Look at some of the vocabulary that you could use for this. And now let's have a look at this particular one. Speaking prototype for part 2, you could start with these given lines. Thank you for the given topic. It is such an unusual topic, uncommon topic, humorous, funny. So you can use any of the given adjectives to start your speaking. Moving on to the next part, you could say, continue your speech by saying that, thank you for the given topic, ma'am. This is such an interesting topic because as a kid, I did play a lot of games and I was a part of my school basketball team. And because of that, it helped shape a lot of my personality. It helped shape my personality as a child, as a teenager, as an adult. And then you go on to describe. So give a little bit of a background in terms of how it has affected you, and then how you felt about being part of the team could come in later, and then what the team was, what your role was in the team. So that's an approach that you could take for a topic like this. Now, again, a lot of words out there, and you could use these words to answer the question. So you can see we could use words like trustworthy, responsible, ethical, diligent, obedient, because all these go. When you work in a team, you're talking about being trustworthy, being responsible, being ethical. That means following the rules of the game and doing it properly, being obedient to the team leader, and being diligent. That means concentrate on the details. So it comes together to give you a very nice IELTS speaking topic too. All right. Um, Apart from that, you've got other words out here. You could also say I was very gullible, and that is the reason why some of the people took advantage of my behavior when I was growing up um, in the team. So they took advantage of the fact that I was a soft-speaking person, a soft-spoken person, and they would bully me a lot, and they had malicious interests because they didn't want me to be a part of the team. That made me realize that in life I have to become stronger and more confident in myself. Okay, now for this particular topic, you can see the vocabulary has been given out here, and you could refer to this vocabulary to answer the questions in a better manner. All right, now I am going to bombard you with a series of part 1 topics, part 2 topics, and part 3 topics. Get your notebooks out and take a note of these speaking topics, and be very, very clear that these are definitely going to come for your examination. All right. Now, let's start. So, this particular topic is something which could be substituted with, instead of tea or coffee, it could be, do you prefer winters or summers? Do people drink a lot of tea and coffee in your country? Do people go to a lot of beaches and mountains in your country? So, so you need to understand this particular topic, especially out here, can be replaced with other nouns. So, and normally these could be in relation to travel, this could be in relation to not only travel but also in relation to your um, playing games. So all these categories could replace these two specific nouns. So you have to be aware of that. So this particular topic, like I said again, came on the last IELTS speaking date for Jan, and we had 6 students of ours who got this question. Since I run an offline institute, and we've seen the success rate of our students in speaking, I can assure you this is going to definitely come again. And because of that, I would suggest please prepare yourself properly. Think about a lot of vocabulary that you can use. The basic problem with speaking part 1 is the questions get repeated. And because the questions get repeated, it's important to understand that you have to give a variety. You have to say, as told earlier, as mentioned earlier, and even if you do not know the answer, you have to come up with some answer or the other. Do you remember the first time you drank tea or coffee? Yes, I do. I was a child, and my parents had advised me only to drink milk or have some kind of, or have Complan or Horlicks, but instead I quietly went to my grandmother's room, and with very pleasing eyes, I requested her to give me a sip of the tea, of her tea. And she gladly shared it with me. And that was the first time I realized that tea could be so delicious and it could be such a lovely beverage which one could enjoy. Though my parents told me not to drink it, but I still did it. So that's something that you could answer. That's one way you could answer. Pachu has asked me a question. Let me answer that. Vocab is essential replaced with another word in case of the topic may come. So the question means what Pachu is trying to say is in case there's another topic, you could replace it. Yes, absolutely. The nouns get replaced. The topic almost remains the same, and the questions are correlated to that. Another question which very commonly comes is mountains or beaches, and it keeps coming, guys. Okay, now part 1 again. Do you like your hometown? Why? How long have you been living in your hometown? What is special about your hometown? What did you like about your hometown when you were a child? And is there anything you don't like about your hometown? What changes would you like to have in the future? Will you continue to live there? Are you good at numbers? So we are doing part 1 first, then part 2, and then part 3. Are you good at numbers? Do you often use numbers to do something? What's your favorite number? Why? Would you like to do jobs dealing with numbers in the future? Are you good at memorizing numbers? Now, this is very interesting because a lot of that again, the same thing. This has specifically come, so I've mentioned it. In fact, from the next prediction series, I'll give you the exact date when these speaking topics have come on. So you'll have a better idea about the range that it gets repeated. Now, another thing to note is these speaking topics come from all over the world. And that is the reason why you'll notice that some of these topics, they look completely, different in terms of content, and because of that it's difficult to answer what someone would feel, but it's all about a strategy. Part 1 speaking topics are never difficult, part 3 maybe, but if you have the ability, and that is the reason why I showed you the structure right at the beginning, if you have the ability to answer one type of questions, you'll be able to answer all types of questions. Yes, Pachu. Now, are you good at numbers? You could say no, ma'am, yes, ma'am. But most people are not good at numbers, and you've got a very selected few who are very good at numbers. So you could say, ma'am, thank you, ma'am. As a child, I clearly remember that I was horrible at numbers and I would often get confused with the different types of sums that my teacher would teach me. But as I grew up and I learned that numbers could also be fun, I was then guided by my teacher in college and gained expertise at it. Do you often use numbers to do something? Accordingly, you could answer. Part 2. Now, this is the one which is the most important. Describe a person who is good at his or her work. This has again repeatedly come. You should say who this person is, what his or or her job is, how well she manages his or her work, and explain why this person is good at the job. Next, part 3. How can a company become successful? Now, you can see part 3 is connected to part 2. Do you think it's good to work in a family business? Should the family business hire the children over someone from the outside, and why? What are the challenges faced by an individual in a family business? Which one do you think is better, to start your own business or to work for others? Who do you think the ownership of the company should be? we do you think the ownership of the company should be private or state owned? Why do some businesses become successful while others do not? Now these are questions you will need some idea before you can even answer. Now since this has already come, and I would suggest it to you that this will come again definitely, so it's important that you please look into practicing each and every question in a as clear a manner as possible. And if a question gets repeated and if you feel an idea is getting repeated, just use language like signposting language, like as mentioned earlier, as said before. So these type of signposting languages. Describe a change that can improve your local area. You should say what it is, how the change would work, what kinds of problems the change will solve, and describe how it would improve your local area. Now this particular question has come only once. So it's important that you prepare yourself properly, and not when we talk about preparing yourself properly, we are also talking about preparing the vocabulary. Just like I've shown it to you in an earlier slide, it is very important that a clarity on the vocab should be there in terms of this answering this question. So be more aware of these type of questions and do it in that manner. All right. Next, do you think some people do not accept changes? Why? Is it advisable to change? Do people in your country like living in a community? Why are people living in a community friendly with others? What are the popular activities in a community? Where do people in a community usually have a social gathering? Now, the interesting thing out here is these questions again will definitely come. That and in order to answer these questions you have to be aware. So how would you answer a question like why are people living in a community friendly with others? They are. So how would you answer? Do you just jump into answering a part 3 question? No, you would use functional language for opinion. So we call it functional language for opinion. In my opinion, people living in a community are more friendly with others because they get used to living with other people where they need to adapt, adjust, and also be cordial to each other and accommodate each other's differences, because of which they're more welcoming and they have a very happy nature. Whereas people who live alone considerably do not get that much of an opportunity to socialize, and because of that one could say, that means there is no guarantee, one could say that people living in a community sometimes are more friendly with others. All right, so your answer should be long enough so that the examiner feels that you are interested, and you should be able to use different grammatical structures to explain it further. Use a lot of linkers, conjunctions. Now this one again, describe a person who is often in the news and who you would like to meet. This one has come, will come again. This particular question, students, please practice. You may never know that this may just come up in the next speaking test. And so that you are completely aware on how to write it, I'm just going to tell you what your approach should be. Now, describe a person who's often in the news and who you would like to meet. Thank you for the given question, ma'am. I would say this particular question is quite a different question because not all of us are in the news and there are very few people who are in the news all the time. I would particularly like to talk about blah blah blah, so and so person, who is often seen in the news talking on various topics. And then you go on to describe. All right. But before that, do a little bit of a background. Talk about, you do not need to specifically talk about that person. Talk in general about the topic and then jump into the topic. While when you do that, what you do is you give enough time to that particular topic to develop, and then you take it forward. Always remember to answer all parts of the questions. Now this you can see few more questions here. How do people get news in your country? Do you think the delivery of news has changed over the years? Again, news could be replaced with how do people get information in your country. It could also be replaced with how do people dress in your country. So the noun can again keep changing. Yes, exactly, Pachu. Very smart. These type of questions can also come in letter writing and part 2. All right. Now, this is the last question that I'm going to share with you. Talk about a new friend that you have met recently. You should say description, where you met him, her, what did you find interesting about him or her? How do young people find new friends? Do you think it is strange to make friends online? How long does it take to get to know someone as a friend? And yes, one another one. Describe a situation when you help someone. Talk about it in detail. And in general, why do people help others? Is it important to help people who are in need? What are the qualities required to be a leader? How's just a second. How is it important for doing? So there is a word missing here. Important for doing as a teamwork. All right. Now, I would like to tell you something about you can use my referral code to register to subscribe to the Unacademy website on and get a 10% off. So before I move ahead, and the other code that you could use is BE trainers, either one of the two, and you would be able to get the discount. The other thing that I would like to share with you before I end the prediction series is that I'm going to start a course from Monday, which is going to take place at 1 p.m. every day. Now, this is going to be a complete series on grammar, and I'm going to try and simplify grammar for IELTS easily for each and every student of mine. We are not only going to do the input, but we are also going to practice all these grammatical structures. All right. So, yes, Pachu, you could do that. That's the answer to your question. Now, before I end, it's important to note that I'm going to come up with the prediction series twice in a month. So, this one was for speaking, the next one is going to be for writing. So, if you would like to know more about what is going to come for the IELTS speaking and writing examination, do not forget to tune in to my series on the prediction, which are being called the prediction series. Thank you and good night. I hope you are able to answer these questions and it strikes gold for you, and you're able to get some of these questions in your IELTS examination. My students have been repeatedly getting it in the last month, and I hope you do too. Thank you and good night.